and get started. Welcome everybody to tonight's Future of Farming and Food Farm to School Town Hall. My name is Natalie Fullerton. I am the Assistant Director here at the Kansas Rural Center. And I want to thank you for taking the time to join us this evening for our town hall, and happy Farm to School Month. October happens to be Farm to School Month, and we're excited to be hosting this town hall during that time. Again, just a couple of very quick housekeeping things. If you haven't already muted yourself, please keep yourself on mute for the time being. We'll have some time at the end for more community discussion and questions following the panel. That said, if you have questions throughout this evening, feel free to put those questions in the chat box in the lower center of your Zoom screen. All right, so let's get to it. First, I want to share just a little bit about the Kansas Rural Center for those of you who may not be as familiar with who we are, and a little bit about the background of our town halls and why we're all here tonight. So first, a little bit about KRC. So KRC for the past, well, over 40 years now have worked to promote the long-term health of land and its people through education, research, and advocacy. And we do this several ways. We monitor state and federal level food and farm policy. So many of you possibly receive our weekly policy watch during the legislative session. This is one way we do that. We also provide the really technical and practical hands-on information and resources like our risk management for specialty crop webinars we hosted back in June, as well as our upcoming farm to school training for producers, which I'll talk a little bit more here in just a minute. And so through all of this, we are committed to an economically viable, environmentally sound, and socially responsible agriculture and rural culture. So the purpose of our town halls, why are we all here tonight? We have been doing these town halls every year now for the past 7 or so years, really for the greater purpose of providing a platform to share information and to learn from each other about farm and food efforts going on around our regions in Kansas. Also to start community conversations and connections, and also to share visions and take action on the future that we want to see for Kansas. So this is the lineup of town halls that we've hosted this year so far. After we hosted last year's town halls, we actually put together a report with some detailed recommendations on 4 issue areas, including local and regional food systems, rural revitalization, climate and climate and energy. And so we've taken the opportunity this year to revisit these issue areas to learn a little bit more about the implications of our future, both for rural and urban within the context of our world now, because as we all know, we've had to do a lot of pivoting and shifting this year and thinking a little bit differently about what our future looks like. And so as for tonight, we're hosting our first Farm to School Town Hall because, well, first of all, we've received a grant to do a 2-year project to help provide training and resources, mostly for producers working with schools, but also providing spaces like this town hall to have community dialogue and education about what Farm to School is and how to be involved in it. So we're one of 3 in Kansas. We also have on the call tonight Barb Depew with the Kansas Department of Education, and Alicia Ellingsworth with KC Food Hub tonight, who will talk a little bit more about what their farm to school efforts look like. So all of our town halls have been recorded and can be found on our website at that URL. We also have, for every town hall this year, we've done a farm tour video. You should have all received a YouTube link for this week's town hall video. As I mentioned earlier, we were lucky enough to get the Haven High School FFA students to share with us a little bit about their greenhouse and the work that they're doing to grow lettuce and other vegetables in their school for their community and for the school food service. So really great video. I definitely encourage you to check that out if you haven't already. We won't view it on tonight's call for the sake of time, but you can find this video as well as our other videos on our YouTube page. So for tonight's town hall, we're going to spend a little bit of time with the League of Women Voters, who will give us some updates and reminders on the upcoming election. And then Barb Depew will share a little bit about the Department of Education and their farm to school efforts. And then we're going to head into our farm to school panel this evening. And we'll hope to have a little bit of time at the end for some Q&A, and we can address some questions at that time. So as you're going along tonight, these are just some questions for you to maybe consider as you're listening to the panelists, some inspiration for questions that you might have or some comments that you might want to offer at the end. And we'll put those in the chat box so you have those handy. And lastly, I just want to remind you to stay connected to Kansas Rural Center. You can find us at any of the major social media platforms, as well as our website. I mentioned the YouTube videos that we're offering ahead of these town halls. You can definitely check those things out there as well. So with that, I think I will go ahead and turn things over to Ryan, who will introduce our first speaker tonight.
Hey, thank you, Natalie. I am Ryan Gertzen-Regier. I am the Program and Administrative Manager here at the Kansas Rural Center, and it's my pleasure to introduce Teresa Briggs, who is going to talk to us about voting from the League of Women Voters. So let me share her presentation quick.
Thank you, Ryan. While you're bringing that up, I'll tell you a little bit about myself. I've been a city girl until about 8 years ago when I moved out into the country between Reading and Lebo, what I lovingly call our gated community. As a newbie, I had to be the one to unlock the gates when we checked the cows, so it seemed appropriate. The League itself really values its relationship with the Kansas Rural Center. We work with Paul Johnson and get his legislative updates, which are extremely valuable. He has such insight into the legislature and things that are happening currently and will happen, and we share those with our members across the state. So we really appreciate the relationship, and I personally really value the town halls that have been going on. Was especially interested in this one because I'm also the chair of the Lyon County Farm and Food Council, and we're trying to encourage and promote farm to school. So to get into the actual reason for my being here, want to make sure that everybody is ready for November 3rd. Lucille King, we call her Seal for short, and myself are co-presidents of the League of Women Voters of Kansas. We are in our second two-year term, which will be up in April, but who's counting? It's been quite a year for the League. You can go ahead and go to the next slide, Ryan. Thank you. This is our centennial. The League of Women Voters was formed in 1920 when they saw that the 19th Amendment was going to be passed, which would grant women the right to vote. They wanted to be able to educate these new voters on how to use their vote effectively. And so we are political. We do follow politics and try to educate our members, but we are completely nonpartisan. We do not support or oppose any candidate or party. I do like to put a little asterisk next to the fact that women gained the right to vote because at the time it was only white women. Black women did not get the vote until 1965, I believe Asian American in 1952. So we have to temper our celebration with the fact that even though those women marched with us, so we gained our right to vote, they still had to wait before they were franchised. The first Kansas League was formed in Wichita, and the first national president came from Wichita. So good connection there. Next slide, please.
Teresa, I apologize. There seems to be some delay. Can you see the new slide?
Yes, I can. Thank you. Okay, I'm good now. Okay. The League may spend years studying particular issues, such as listed here before, and we develop positions on where we stand on those issues, and that helps us create our testimonies that we provide to the legislature and how we advocate for particular legislation. So we've been spending 100 years educating voters on the process of voting. Our mission is defending democracy and empowering voters. And that's truly where we like to spend our time, letting them know how important the vote is. Okay. Go to the next slide or, okay, thank you. There are some people that choose not to vote, and they may have several reasons. I'm going to go through a few of them. I was a candidate for the legislature for a couple of years, a few years back, and I was surprised by the number of people that I would approach as I was going door to door, and they would state that they had never voted and they never intended to, and gave reasons like, I don't want to do jury duty and things like that, which is a myth. That is not where they get the names for jury duty. But some people, for various reasons, choose not to vote, even though the right to vote was stated 5 times in the Constitution, whereas every other right, the right to bear arms, the right for the freedom of speech, all that, was only once. So the founders knew how important and special this right was, and we've had people fight and die to defend our democracy and protect this right. And so we try to encourage people to consider educating themselves more and feeling more comfortable with it. Sometimes they feel like even registering to vote may be intrusive and sometimes difficult or confusing, and they may not feel like they even know what's going to be on the ballot or who's running. Okay, next slide.
Hey, Teresa, I'm on the next slide. Can you see it?
Ryan?
Yeah, I don't know why I get muted every time this happens, so I'm sorry. Two websites that we encourage people to use, vote411.org, which is sponsored by the League of Women Voters. You can check your registration, which I would encourage with anyone. You, for sure, if you have moved since you last voted, you need to go on and make sure that your registration is up to date. And I've heard of people state that they've gone on a site to check their registration and found that they weren't there. So it doesn't hurt to check it once in a while. There can be computer glitches and all kinds of stuff. Just make sure that you're still in there. You can find out what precinct you're in and where your polling place will be. And this year especially, because of space, a lot of times they've had to change the location of polling places from where they used to be. So it's a good idea to make sure that your polling place is where you've typically gone to vote. They've consolidated some polling places and things like that. The League of Women Voters create questions for the candidates of every race and send them to the candidates. A good number of them do respond, and we put their answers exactly as they provide them to us on this site so that voters can look and see where they stand on maybe issues that are important to the voter. We do not correct any spelling or anything. We simply copy and paste. So it's up to the candidates to make sure that their information is correct and spelled correctly. And then you can also look and see what's going to be on your ballot. I don't know how many times I've heard people, they walk into the polling place and look at the ballot and they are just clueless. They didn't realize that certain questions or candidates were going to be asked. For one thing, you don't have to answer every question on a ballot. We always are hopeful that you will. But this way you go in and you're a more educated voter. ksvotes.org is very similar. You can also confirm your registration and register. On this one, you can apply for an advanced ballot. And if you do it on your phone or tablet so that you can sign your name on the screen, when you submit it, it goes directly to your county clerk's email that they have set up to receive those notifications. And then you should get a confirmation from them that they have received your ballot. Okay. Thank you. Other people say they don't have time to vote. And this year, I think especially, or really in the last few years, we've seen county clerks really go out of their way to expand the advanced voting opportunities to include maybe a weekend or two and an evening that would more fit people's schedules. So we really want to make sure that people stay in touch with their news as far as what the county clerk is providing in their county. And might stress too, well, I think I mentioned this later, but so anyway, they believe that their vote doesn't really count. I hear that a lot, and many people feel that that's true, but really the way we try to frame it to folks is that your vote is your voice. And if you don't cast your vote and your opinion of how something should happen or what candidate should be representing you, you're giving that option to someone else, and they may disagree with you completely on several issues. So we really encourage people that it's important that their voice is heard through their vote. Okay. Next slide, please. So as we say, every vote counts. This is what happens when you don't vote. I'm sure you can all think of a Mexican restaurant that would be more fitting to receive a Best Mexican Restaurant of the Year award than Taco Bell, but this is what happens when people don't vote. Just a little humor in there. Okay, next slide. These are some important dates to remember, and boy, they are coming up fast. Next Tuesday is the deadline to be able to register to vote for the general election. So you need to get that in. You can use those two websites I mentioned earlier, or go to your county election office or county clerk, however you refer to them. Then when registration is done, then in-person voting can start early. And that's typically at the county election office. And at that point, they'll also start sending out any mail ballots that have been requested. Tuesday, October 27th is the last day officially to request a mail ballot, but I would strongly suggest you do not wait until then, as we know that the mail is probably going to have a lot bigger quantity of mail ballots this election than possibly other times. And it's important that that gets through the system and arrives in time that your vote counts. So I encourage you to get that requested early. Okay. Monday, of course, November 2nd at 12 noon, your early in-person voting ends. So that is at noon. Tuesday, November 3rd, then the polls are going to be open from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. It is the law that if you are in line at 7 p.m., you must be allowed to vote. So as long as the line may be, and in some places they may be long. Take a chair, an umbrella, water, because if you get out of line, and you'll miss out on your chance to vote. If you have a mailed ballot, they can be dropped off at any polling site in your county, and you have to cast your votes in the county where you reside. And the last day to have mailed ballots postmarked is election day as well. But again, don't wait. Just as soon as you get your mail ballot, if that's the preferred method you have, get them sent back as early as possible. The Friday after the election is the last day for the county to receive the mail ballot and have it count. Okay, next slide. I did have a question. We did a presentation just before this one to social workers, and it was a woman, and I've heard this before. She had requested an advance or a mail-in ballot. She wanted to fill it out, but then she decided that she would just go to the polls and vote, and she wanted to make sure that was going to be okay. Once you request an advance ballot, they indicate that in their poll book. And so if you show up and request another ballot, you will get a provisional ballot. And so if you want that vote to count, if you've requested a mail-in ballot, you need to fulfill, that is a real ballot, and you need to complete that and return that. This is on the state Secretary of State website where you can track your mail ballot from when the county received your request to when they send it to you, and then when they receive it, when you've returned it. So that's a pretty nice site to make sure that your ballot is being processed. Okay, next slide. All right, that's really all I have. Here's our website. Co-presidents share a email as well where you can send questions, or if you have some this evening. I didn't know quite how much time you would need for the rest of your program. I don't want to cut into that. So if you'd rather send me questions directly, then I'll be happy to answer them, and hope you're all registered and ready to vote.
Wonderful. Thank you, Teresa. Sorry about the technical difficulties there.
Oh, that's fine.
I'm not quite sure what was going on. I'll turn it back over to Natalie to introduce our panel. So thank you very much.
Great. Thanks, Ryan, and thanks, Teresa. So we're going to go ahead and have Barb Depew go next. Barb Depew is the Farm to Plate Director with Kansas Department of Ed, and she's going to talk a little bit about the activity they have around Farm to School.
Thank you, Natalie, and it's great to be here and to see the people that are attending, hopefully to hear more about Farm to School. And as I listened to Teresa, I think a lot about what she was doing and educating us about the election process is a lot about what we do with our child nutrition programs to educate the kids about their foods and where their food comes from. And so these grants that we have by the USDA are going to provide us with great opportunities to be able to add to that opportunity. This is Farm to School Month, and so we do encourage this month to celebrate local foods. A lot of our child nutrition sponsors out there work with local products throughout the school year, but we encourage activities in this month to be able to go ahead and put a focus on the local foods area. We have recently recognized a couple of our sponsors in Kansas. You saw the pre-meeting tour from Haven Schools. They were one of our sponsors that we gave an award called the Kansas Can Serve Local Foods Award. And the other recipient of that was Elk Valley Schools. And so that we do this annually to recognize our programs that have done an outstanding job. And you're going to hear from some of them tonight that are also very, very able to be recognized in this area too. So in the month of October, we have some events. We are doing what we call a Mountain Plains Crunch Off event. We are in a contest with 8 other states in our Mountain Plains region. So we have on our website a link to sign up. We encourage any of you as an individual or as a group to go ahead and sign up on our SurveyMonkey link. I'll put that in the chat box a little bit later, to be able to go ahead and crunch on a local apple. So of course, the apples are one of the things that we see out there being harvested in the fall. And so that is what we are using to crunch on. So that's one opportunity. Anybody can sign up to do that. And then also we are using this month to go ahead and to introduce our sub-grant applications that are part of our grant project. And this project then that we have is a grant that you guys, anybody out there with our programs working together, can receive up to $10,000 in funding to go ahead and help either introduce or enhance the local foods in your programs. And this could be something such as maybe a hoop house, it could be tower gardens in the classrooms, it could be maybe a freezer to store that local beef that you'd be getting. It could also be even live animals that you could go ahead and be purchasing as an ag project that you would go ahead and have in your schools to work with then as an ag education area. So I encourage you then to reach out to your schools, to your childcare areas, to consider this application. The applications are available out there now on our website, and they will be available to be submitted until December the 1st. And we will be considering those then to award those. And in the first year, then they'll be able to go ahead and use the funding to purchase their products then, or their items, to be able to go ahead and enhance their program. And in the second year, we are going to be changing up our Body Venture, which is an educational exhibit that travels across the state. And that Body Venture exhibit will have an ag education focus with it. So that'll be a way that those that have received the grant funding then will be able to go ahead and host Body Venture in their programs. And there's a lot of opportunities for others throughout the state to go ahead and sign up for that exhibit. It is obviously not going out on the road this year due to COVID, so this kind of worked in our favor for us to be able to have the time to go ahead and make those renovations and those changes that we needed to be able to go ahead and do that. So again, I encourage you to reach out to me if you have any questions, and again, look at your programs around you and ways that you can work together to go ahead and increase local foods and the education of those products in our programs. So thank you for your time.
Thanks, Barb. And yeah, if you can sneak those links in the chat box, that would be awesome. And then we can also send those out in the follow-up to this town hall as well, to make sure folks get that information. And also just a reminder before we head into the panel, in case some of you missed it, when we first started, we do have a pre-town hall farm to school video by the Haven High School FFA students. So if you haven't had a chance to check that out yet, I'll drop that link in the chat box as well, so you can check that out after tonight. All right, so with that, I am going to go ahead and turn things over to Alicia Ellingsworth. She is the Sales and Production Director at KC Food Hub and a fellow Farm to School grant recipient. So really happy to have Alicia here helping to lead our panel of amazing folks doing farm to school work across Kansas. So I'll go ahead and turn it over to her to introduce herself a little bit more, as well as the panelists.
Thanks, Natalie. So awesome to be here with this wonderful group doing the work and learning about the work and sharing all the things for the kids. So my name is Alicia Ellingsworth, Sales and Production Director of KC Food Hub. I'm also a member of the Kansas City Food Hub. We are grower-owned, farmer-run Cooperative Association, and we work together to feed grocery stores, cafeterias, corporate cafeterias, and some restaurants. Our farm is KC Farm School at Gibbs Road, so we're the urban aggregation site. I'm excited to get to the panel. I'm going to ask everyone to introduce themselves. And 3 questions: who you are, where you are, and what you do. Maybe take 2 minutes each, and then we'll get into discussion. So we're just going to go down the list of the folks who signed on and who I first met. So David, if you would introduce yourself, please.
Sure. My name is David Kirkendall. I'm in Logan, Kansas, which would be about an hour and 15 minutes north, a little west of Hayes. I am a pre-K-12 principal, so I have everybody from preschool all the way through 12th grade. I also am the district tech director, a teacher, and I also run, I'm the main person for our foods program through the school lunch program. So.
Okay. Thank you. Sondra?
I am from St. John, Kansas, and I'm the food service director here. This is my 25th year. Our farm to school program is mostly consists of the beef donation program.
Okay. Okay. Thank you. That's some dedication. I'm impressed. 25 years feeding kids. Nice. Lindsay, do you want to tell us about yourself?
Hi, I'm Lindsay Morgan. I'm supervisor of food service and registered dietitian for Lawrence Public Schools in Lawrence. We have several different prongs off of our farm to school program. We have raised bed gardens in our 14 elementaries. We have some production type gardens in our middle schools, working with our high schools to get some of that on board, but we have field trips and nutrition education that we do throughout the district on several different levels.
Awesome. Thank you. And Mark.
Yes. Can you hear me?
We can hear you.
All right. Very good. Mark Jirak, owner of Jirak Family Produce. My family and I are vegetable growers located just southwest of Atchison, Kansas, on a 103-acre farm, which we have about 12 acres of vegetables in production, as well as 4 high tunnels that are 30 by 96 feet. And we produce a number of crops, including watermelon, cantaloupe, slicing tomatoes, grape tomatoes, cucumbers, green beans, squash, sweet corn, pumpkins, eggplant, and summer squash, as well as zucchini. I think I caught all the crops. We've been producing vegetables in that area for the last 17 years. And we've been with farm to school, delivering and working with schools, I think, for a good 10 years now, since we started. But we sell to farmers markets, food service, restaurants, as well as the schools, which are a big part of our business. The year before last, we would have been somewhere in the 28 to 30% range of our production was going to schools. So a pretty big chunk. This year that isn't quite the case because of delayed openings and virtual schools. So it's not quite as high this year, but hopefully it returns to that level or higher once we get past the pandemic.
Yes, hopefully so. I know all the farmers I know have had to shift their sales, shift their mode of operation. Sounds like you have done the same thing. So my next question is, how do we make that shift? And then how do we shift back? Like, farmers are scrappy, right? So we had to pivot this year, but is there room, is there opportunity to shift back and work with schools going forward in a way that wasn't happening this year? Like, is there hope for that? Does farm to school matter that much, Mark?
I would say yes. I mean, we would hope that once we get past the pandemic and get back to more of a normal schedule, that it would jump right back up where it was or higher. We like that segment for our business. It's higher volumes, and it's kind of from a seasonal standpoint, it's after the farmers markets start to fall off.
Yeah.
And so it rounds out things pretty nicely for us. Now, some of the crops that the schools take aren't necessarily what use as much in farmers markets. So we grow it specifically for schools. So we hope that it comes back, that we've invested to be able to deliver. And so, we intend. Now you have to ask the schools if they think that that's going to happen, but certainly we're interested in taking it back to the level it was before this all started.
Yeah, thank you. I'm wondering, Lindsay, I know you've been feeding kids through the summer. How has that worked with local farms, and how is it working now? What's happening right now with you all?
Well, we fed starting in March. We took a little break and had restaurants feed for about a month, but we've been feeding since June. Our school district decided to go fully remote for the first 6 weeks. So we've had no students in the building since March. So with us delaying our start, we weren't able to purchase for about 3 weeks because we weren't having the volume to be able to purchase. So it has directly impacted our volume and being able to handle it, because we unfortunately had to furlough about 40%, well, no, 60 percent of our staff. So, you know, when you have less staff, you're not able to do as much production. And as we know, farm to school, it's amazing. But when you get, 2,200 pounds of watermelon in, you have to have a way to be able to have that production go. So it's been interesting.
Yeah. Yeah, I know, being in Kansas City, we look at Lawrence as really a leader. We look to you guys as a model school district for working with farmers, and you're what we're all aiming for when we talk to school districts around Kansas City. So I knew you've been in working farm to school for a while. I didn't know, Sondra, that you had been 25-year veteran. So you've seen probably like the old school farm to school, and then the shift away, and now the shift back. Have you seen that much?
I wasn't really involved in farm to school before. We've just been doing it for about the last, I think it's been close to 4 years now, around 4 years. But I would say with the pandemic, for the farmers mostly, or the beef producers, our problem now, and it still is a problem, we had cattle on feed that we couldn't get killed because of the pandemic. And then once it kind of started coming back and we were able to get some cattle, into the packing plants and get them killed, then they had their outbreak with the COVID out in Western Kansas. And so like production pretty much just came to a halt out there for packers, for our feedlots to send cattle to. And so that has been a problem. And for our small producers like my family and our families here in our community that are giving, the cattle away or trying to get cattle processed to help other people out. We had families that help with our farm to school that donated some beef, but it was a problem to get the beef processed because there's not enough places to take it.
Right.
And some of the packing plants they upped their production to run 7 days a week, and they were running about 12 hours a day just to try to meet local demand. But I know that they still had cattle out there that were just wasted because there was nowhere to go with them.
Right.
But luckily here for our farm to school beef program, we actually have dates with our packer that we use, which is Ellenwood Packing Plant. And we have our dates, I think, for another 2 years.
Okay. I know people are scheduling out, right?
Well, you know, for my own cattle, I had some cattle on feed, and we actually took them off and we fed them on grass all summer, and we just brought them back, and we can't get them processed until February.
Okay.
So they're going to be pretty big, and then there's a limit on how tall they can be and how big they can be. So you don't want to push them too much. I mean, it's challenging.
I'm really impressed, though, through all the challenges that you're able to feed meat to kids. That's huge, right? And I know
Yes.
David's also, he's got a Beef It Up program that he's feeding beef to kids. Would you talk a little bit about that program, David? How it came about and how you're managing it?
Sure. We started ours right the year I came here. So it's been 5 years that we started at the school I'm currently at Logan. And it's been a huge success for us. It was actually started by a farmer. He had come to me and wanted to donate beef. And we're not really running into any problems here because of what we're asking on the processing of it. We're turning as much into hamburger meat as we can, and then some roasts or fajita meat, but that's usually about every third cow that goes through. It's a huge benefit to the farmer because they're able to take the hanging weight and they'll get a receipt as a donation for it. We pay all of the processing fees. We even reached out and purchased cattle off the 4-H fairs, and they had already had slots open at the processing plants for us. Purchased several other freezers to store it in. We're running ours through really without much trouble at our school. I know that some schools have done things like some processing plants, you have to have them inspected, and it's the FDA, and Barb could probably speak more on that. So we go through all that with them, and we get our hanging weight, and we get our receipts, and we get our paperwork, which is very minor paperwork. You have to show the fat to meat ratio, the percentage has to be on it. But other than that, it's pretty simple for us. I get a call, they get the ticket, we go over, pick it up, and we put it in our storage. Last year, we had somebody donate an entire beef for our concession stand so that we could do chili meats, we could do hamburgers for the concession stands. But our farmers in our area are extremely supportive of it. The one thing that they didn't want to do that other schools were doing was the steaks. And some packing plants refused to cut steaks into hamburger for us. But these farmers did not want that to be a fundraiser or any other activity. They wanted it to go right to the kids. And so we did it that way, and we put everything into it for the students. Good quality meat, it's local grown, and our farmers here are extremely supportive of it. We have the raised beds as well. That's actually ran through our FFA program and some of our 4-H, but we run it all the way down to our preschool. We found that by including preschool and elementary kids in our raised beds and our gardens, that we're having less destruction and vandalism after hours, because the kids are growing the seeds in the classroom to start, and then we'll transplant them, but they feel like they own part of it, and they get to watch that process all the way through our FACS class, and what we're not using there, we're putting in the kitchen. Crops that are coming ready in the summer, like some of the tomatoes over the summer, we have kids that will volunteer, and they open up our own little farmers market downtown, which is a free market. We set up a couple trucks, a couple days or one day a week, and whatever we have, eggplant, tomatoes, a lot of tomatoes, onions, radishes, all that kind of stuff. They have it all in boxes, and it's stop and take whatever you want and go. And now several of those people will want donations, and the kids say, we're not taking it. If you want to do something, pass it on, or you can help the school when we come around for your magazine sales or other activities. And I think they appreciate that, knowing that we're not asking for money, we're giving it to anybody that needs it. But we also know that in our small community, as I visited with the panel before we started this, it's a town of 550 people. So we hit everybody on every fundraiser there is out there. So this is our little way of giving back to them or whatever we need to do. And we do it right beside the grocery store and in support with the grocery store. So they know that when we're doing that, then, you know, it's not a competition against them. They're excited that we're helping bring, you know, farm raised products and crops and beef into the community. So.
Yeah, nice. It's almost normal to feed kids farm raised food and farm grown vegetables. I love that. And to bring them and to bring the farm to school into the classroom, that's a bit of what we're doing with our farm to school grant that we got through the USDA, is that to close that loop. So I'm going to hit you up later and pick some brains. I know some people are really doing a lot to feed kids, and some are really doing a lot to bring kids onto a farm. And so we're trying to gather up all those stories and then provide that, share that training with other people who haven't yet closed that loop. Because, you know, it's kind of scary talking to a farmer if you don't know a farmer, right? It's maybe it's the same language, but it's not quite sure that it's the same language. And sometimes farmers are happier at the market or in their fields and not quite sure how to knock on a door of a school district. I know, Lindsay, you guys have done that well. And so I'm wondering, and I checked out your website earlier today, and you're like listing all the farms you work with and almost, you know, making the farmers look like rock stars. Can you talk a little bit about that and how that came about?
We started our program about 10 years ago. We had one kitchen manager that was interested in farm to school, and she really started the, you know, efforts of what that would look like in our district. We've been very fortunate that we've been able to leverage grants and stuff like that in order to sustain and build our program. So as I said, we have the 14 elementaries and our preschool that have the raised bed gardens. We try to get education into that, and we have garden coordinators that take care of those. How we got into as far as farmers, I think Mark was actually our very first farmer that we purchased food from. So we started with him and we've grown. Obviously this year there's been a lot going on, so we haven't been able to get as much produce in, but we just really started talking to them. You know, we brought them in for the first few years and had farmers meetings so that we would discuss what our program was about. I think the first year we brought them into our kitchen so they could see, because if you think about it, there's a lot of logistics to bring food into a kitchen. So to kind of see what that was like, I think our first year we were loading it off a trailer into stuff, and then we were able to see that need to have we brought tubs that can go through the dishwasher. We can easily distribute them to other schools. So our high schools are our main point of entry. So farmers will deliver to one of our 2 high schools, and then we have truck drivers in our district that will distribute it to the schools throughout the district. I think one thing we're always working on is just ordering. It can be time consuming, I think, on our end and the farmers' end when you're trying to order weekly. So kind of refining and always looking at what that is. We've done a lot of education for our staff as far as, you know, when you get 2,200 pounds of watermelon and you've got to process that, what's the easiest way to do that, to get that? So we've done a lot of professional development with our staff to be able to accept that. And, you know, the kids notice it and they eat it, because when we get watermelons and stuff like that, it's a great time of year. And you notice the difference from the, you know, the local to if you're buying it from, say, a wholesaler and stuff like that. So it's been a really interesting and fun part of my job to get to, you know, dive into farm to school and see how it's grown and how the kids have reacted, and kind of see just that they enjoy it and they notice when it's gone for the season.
Mark, any changes in your business structure or any modifications to get the produce to schools rather than to restaurants or to farmers market? Do you have to change your practices in any way? How do you accommodate those drops?
Yeah, so from a growing perspective, you know, you have to phase it for the school year. So it isn't plant as early as you can and then hope it hangs on. you've got to plant such that it's phased to start somewhere around August 15th. So that's one of the adjustments we had to make in production. And as Lindsay said, one of the key things is being able to have those tubs. And so we can pick right into those, or we'll wash right into them, and then we can deliver in them. And then for watermelon, we use a macro 330 bin, and then we just swap them out when they're empty, break them in full, bring them out empty. Those actually we own. So, you know, what we've tried to do is cut down or eliminate any paper, plastic that isn't reusable, returnable. And, you know, that's good for the environment, and makes it easier to facilitate the delivery of the product. So that's worked very well. As far as anything else, you know, there has to be good communication between you and the school, because you can order something and I may have a pretty good idea what I'm going to have, but I may not always have as much as we want, and they may want, or something may happen that what I thought I had, I didn't have. And so there's got to be good communication to let them know that either, yeah, you can provide what they're asking for, or you're going to be short in how much you actually have. So the communication is extremely important around that.
Right. So I don't know who wants to answer this question, but I know one school can go through an awful lot of cucumbers or watermelons or green beans. So like, how does an individual farmer even approach a school? How does that, what are your suggestions, recommendations?
Well, here's what I did is 10 years ago, I was running the situation where I had extra produce at the end of the farmer's market season as it falls off when school starts. I called Barb Depew and I said, Barb, I got produce. Are there any schools that would be interested? And within 24 hours, I had 5 schools that contacted me. And that's what got us started, was Barb sending that out to the schools. But a lot of schools are receptive. That's pretty clear. I've got more schools approaching me than what I can currently service. And so I basically have stayed with the schools that I've had for a number of years and really haven't tried to go out and solicit more, but I have been approached about picking up more schools. And I work a full-time job, so this is more a bit of a sideline for me. And so I really can't get much bigger than I am right now to handle it. But schools are receptive. I think I wouldn't have any problem recommending people approach schools. And, you know, there's some real benefits to the kids as far as the quality of the produce. You know, there's the grants that help fund it. And then the other thing, I think the waste goes down because the kids are eating the food, but also because the kitchen, if they want 32 cucumbers, they don't have to order 60 by case lots from a wholesaler. They can get 32 cucumbers, and you see a lot less food being wasted. And it amazed me. I'd pull up to deliver to school, and you'd meet somebody coming out headed to the dumpster, and you'd see something going in the dumpster, and it's because they have to order to the nearest case lot, and that may not fit their demand curve, you know, what they need in the kitchen. So there's some real benefits. And as Lindsay had already said, the kids, I think, eat more of the food. They appreciate the better taste, and certainly in a lot of cases, produce has a higher nutrition. So I don't know that schools, that's the issue. I think it's getting enough growers that are willing to commit to producing it, because it's maybe a 30 to 40 day window that you can have good production, August 15th to late September maybe, and after that it's spotty. But so you've got to have a grower that's willing to phase it and hit that, and you got to have enough quantities to make it worthwhile for the producer, but also for the school system. So as Lindsay said, you know, there's pretty big quantities when you're talking about the size of schools that we're talking about, and you have to scale up in order to be able to deliver it.
Yeah, definitely finding the right size customer for the right size farm that you are, or join in like we do and work together and meet that demand. But I know there are smaller schools scattered around as well as big ones scattered around. I'm wondering, what the future looks like. So what's your vision for next year, 5 years? What's 10 years look like? So when these kids who are in 5th grade now are entering college, how is it going to be different for them, and how are we going to meet those needs? David, what's your answer?
I don't see much difference for us. We're expanding as we go. Again, being small as we are, we're continuing to add different programs to what we're doing now and supplementing it. Our plant and animal science classes are looking at ways to help with farmers. We're one of the very few schools in the nation that has a drone program. We actually have a drone that can lift a 5-gallon bucket of water. And in that drone, it has a heat camera that can go 1 pixel per inch. And we're working with farmers right now on mapping their fields for them. It'll tie into disease and drought by looking at a pixelated formula through the camera system. We entered into a contract with a company overseas that will take our video within 24 hours. We'll send it back and give us a crop report that will show disease, infestation of bugs, drought, stress fields. Leaves will give off a different color depending on what's going on with them. They'll analyze that. So we're working with farmers on it. There are 8 entities right now that are working on getting the chemical spraying component to the drones. We have one instructor. It's the only one we know of is my teacher that's going through, and he's partnered up with K-State to get that certification that we'd be able to go out and spray small fields or help with different aspects of the spraying, which is really kind of unique for out in this area. But we're working on that kind of stuff with farmers and trying to help them out as much as we can, giving back to them, showing kids that there's future in farming. We definitely take the idea of career choices within our school itself out and helping. I don't want to dominate the conversation, but for example, we had a student last year that wanted to do work study, and our work study is completely different, I think, than a lot of places. I don't believe in sending them out to work. They can go work the rest of their life. Our work study is he went down to Kaiser Ag, which is our seed and several different crop specialist sprayers and such. And we actually brought in the owner of the business, and he spent about a 3-week boot camp with my counselor learning how to teach, so that my student went down to him and he spent 2 or 3 weeks working with seed sales, another couple of weeks on seed ordering, another couple of weeks with the chemical side of it, another few weeks working the mechanical side. So he didn't just go out and work. He went out and learned the entire process of what it would be like to take he went out and checked fields with the crop and soil agronomists. We wanted to give him a full spectrum of what he could learn in agriculture. Actually even did some ag business within it itself. So we're doing things like that with our farmers to really work with them. Our Beef It Up program, I usually have more beef than what we can handle in our facility. So we kind of stack them up. We reward the farmers, which I know it's a small pittance, but they give us a 1,000-pound steer or whatever it may be. We give them a pass, and they're allowed to come to any home activity that we have, and their whole family. I figure it's a minor amount to not collect gates for them, but they get to come in for free. Mm-hmm. So we do little things like that. About 3 years ago, we started doing pork as well, and we found that we were doing no hams, but just straight ground pork. That way my cooks can add it to whatever sausage they want. If they want Italian, they'll add Italian seasoning. If they want ground pork for breakfast burritos, then they'll add a breakfast seasoning. So everything we're doing on it is so that it'll have the most use throughout the entire program itself, and not trying to specify or specifically keyhole one area of it. So, but we found that it's a definite give and take back and forth with the farmers. Yeah. But on the other side of it, we'll do things like if we have somebody that has high moisture corn and it's in their trench line, and they need plastic covering it with tires spread all over to keep the the plastic on, they call us up and we might take our football team out on a afternoon or a Saturday to help them out. So there's a lot of give and take back and forth and trying to help them as best we can, because we understand what they're doing for us. And so it's really not a big deal, because most of those kids that are in the school are farming families. I would say probably 80% of my student body is somehow related to agriculture. And when I talk about that, I'm also talking about the oil and gas industry as well. So
you're showing them more broadly, though, how they can be involved in ag, stay in town, but not go into the same business maybe their parents did.
Absolutely. We're looking at ways that we can say to them, go out and get you a career, go to K-State. For example, my son's at K-State right now, mechanical engineering, because he wants to come back and work on a farm and figure out, or not necessarily with a farm, but with John Deere or Great Plains Manufacturing, somehow looking at mechanical engineering to help with farming and that area. So we think that the drone programs that we're seeing pop up in all the small colleges now are going to be huge. On that, I have a student, when they take 1 year of my classes in drone, I had a student take 1 year of it last year. He went up and took his FAA license, and now he is a commercial drone operator at 18 years of age, and was offered a job at $60,000 at 18. So that's what we're doing, is trying to get them to where they can go off, but yet come back and help grow our community.
Thank you.
You bet.
Awesome. Sondra, I'm wondering what you see the future, what's 5 to 10 years down the road look like?
Oh boy. Well, in our community I believe that our farmers that are supporting our programs will continue to support them, because St. John is an agriculture community, and we do have oil and gas here too. A lot of our students do go to K-State, and a lot of them do come back and have some kind of ag job. Not necessarily, and they also help on their families' farms too, but I think that our community will continue to grow, because we have a lot of people here that feel like it's important, for the ag to keep going.
Yeah.
And in our school, we do give the free passes to our beef donors,
Nice.
And we also get donors that give us watermelon and cantaloupe and products like that. We do have some swine production here in this county, and I haven't really visited with them, but I have thought about asking them about some donations for that. They also raise cattle too, so they have donated cattle before.
Nice.
And then we have other people that don't necessarily donate beef, but they'll donate money for the processing of the livestock too. So
awesome. We make a habit on our farm to not ask anybody something that's hard to give. So if someone donates something to us, we are definitely sharing with them, but we're also making sure that it truly is an excess for them, and to just tap into that abundance. It's just about moving resources around.
right.
So I'm really impressed with this conversation, and to think about farm to school, it's so much more than delivering some potatoes to the back door of a high school and cooking those potatoes and kids eating them, right? It's about building relationships. It's about revitalizing communities. It's about creating jobs and opportunities for young people going forward. All these things we talked about. I'm wondering what we're missing still. We're spending our lives doing this work. What's untapped, or what's the one thing that we really need to look at that we haven't looked at yet? And we probably have 10 minutes, and I have another couple questions. So I'm thinking maybe popcorn style. Somebody just shout some stuff out, and then we go around and maybe just capture some of these things that we need to look at later. What are we not seeing or talking about yet?
I think there needs to be more bridge between farmers, community, and the schools. Sondra, in St. John, I was at Stafford for 14 years before I went and became an administrator. And I know some of the things that we put in at Stafford, and I know they've done some different activities at St. John area. But I think that reaching out, and she's in a great community for that at St. John, they're very supportive. But there's a lot more of reaching out to those farmers and making them a part of the school. And you need to have an administration that's willing to see the value in the learning that can be done within the farming and agricultural communities.
Nice, thank you. Lindsay?
I think it's seeing, you've seen 3 different instances that farm to school is not one size fits all. So even though may not have certain resources in one area, you can have, there's many different ways to be farm to school and have that be in your school district. So not getting intimidated by it, and then finding those champions in your schools that are going to help you support that and in your community, because it takes all of us. You can't do it by yourself. So really making sure that you're finding those key people that can help you in that. And I think one thing we've talked about a little bit, but sustainability, making sure that you have a good foundation in whatever you're doing to have that done. And then I think also one thing that we've talked about a little bit is logistics. You need to make sure as you're having that communication, as Mark said, that farmers know exactly kind of what they're getting into. And if you're bringing them into the school or you're having the conversations, that you're just making sure that they know what your process is, and you kind of understand where they're coming from, because that can lead to a breakdown and maybe frustration on both sides, and you're not having a productive relationship that's going to be beneficial to both of you.
Yeah, thank you.
And for me, I mean, it's, as a producer, it's the investment, right? So schools can require, is putting in a walk-in cooler to help me consolidate and, production to get more uniform size and shape, like on cucumbers or zucchini. And then also, maintain the quality of the product. Right now, we're just trying to pick to order right ahead, and that sometimes can be very challenging because of weather or just not enough time to get everything done. So, we got to make investments, and one of the things that I need to do really to take on more schools, if I wanted to, is I've got to put in a walk-in cooler.
Yeah. So are you out there working by yourself and after your full-time job?
Yes, on weekend. I've got my kids. I mean, I've got 6 children, and they aren't all at home now, but the kids are very involved. My wife is too. She is very involved and does a lot of the manual labor along with us. So I'd say 80% of the labor comes directly from the family, and then we hire at harvest and planting, we may hire some additional help.
Wow. Sondra, what are we missing? What are we not talking about?
I don't know. I know we sure appreciate our farmers around here that donate to us. Yeah. I'm sure the other schools that get donations do too. Yeah. Like David said, in his district, it was a farmer that came to him about the program, and here actually it was the same way. And I guess I didn't say this either about Hudson cream flour, is in our county too. And when the beef donation thing started, then they decided that they wanted to start donating flour to all the schools in Stafford County. And actually the 60-40 blended flour, so our bread that we serve, you don't have to serve it all now.
Homemade bread.
We make homemade bread, but we are a small district, so I know they can't do it in big districts, but I mean in small districts we do it. And Stafford School, where David used to be, they're the ones that their culinary arts class are the ones that came up with that 60-40 blended flour, so that you can just, you don't have to measure so much whole wheat flour and so much, you know, white flour to get that. And they're getting a better product, and they're getting more of the whole grain flour than they would have off of the regular recipe.
It's probably easier for the farmer too, not having so much waste.
Right. And it's, you know, it's a great program, and it's for us too on that. So I don't know what we're missing. I just hope that we can get back to the way things maybe used to be before COVID. I'm sure everyone else wants to do the same.
Yeah.
I think it's really hard on our students and on our communities.
Hard on the teachers.
And it's hard not only on the teachers, it is hard on the staff.
Yeah.
Notice, because I'm so busy trying to produce, you know, either lunches or to go, because we are in session, but we have had some kids that have chose to be remote.
Yeah.
And so we're feeding them, and we're trying to produce breakfast and not get anybody exposed to catch anything. And so our breakfasts are going home with students in my district.
Yeah.
So I just think that it is a very hectic time for everyone, and we all would like to see things go back to some normalcy.
We all need one of these.
Yeah, we do.
Everybody needs one of those.
I think everyone on this panel is doing an amazing job in whatever you do.
Yeah, I think the country is doing an amazing job. Okay, so it's 8:15. Lindsay, I want to go back and ask you to follow up briefly on a question you just answered, but then we also want to give people who are listening opportunity to ask their questions, and so we'll hand it back to Natalie in a minute. Lindsay, you said something about farm to school is not a one-size-fits-all proposition, that you have to find your partners and find your mentors. How do we find our partners? How do we find our mentors? How did you do it?
We started reaching out. We were very fortunate. We got a grant through the Kansas Health Foundation that we were able to have a farm to school coordinator. And we just started looking at different districts and stuff like that, where they were. We're not in a silo, so being able to reach out to other people and see what they're doing, how they're doing it, what's working well, what's not working well, and then just sharing experiences. We've been fortunate that we've got some grants and been able to go to like the farm to school, national farm to school conferences and stuff like that. So really just seeing where we're at. We've been fortunate we got a USDA planning grant. So that has just further been able to expand what our reach is and what we're looking at. And we are fortunate to have a team. So I have myself, I have our director of food service, and we also have a person, our assistant director of wellness. So she's able to kind of get into curriculum. So we're trying to weave stuff into curriculum. So that's been an experience. So we have that buy-in from teachers that we're seeing it across the board, not just in the cafeteria, but they're being able to see it in the classroom as well. And then we also have an outdoor education coordinator. So we have a team effort, but we've reached out to the state. I mean, we've done multiple different, trips that we've been able to do through grants to just kind of see what other people are doing and glean what we can from them and then make it our own. Because like I said, since it's not a one size fits all, we've been able to kind of carve our path by seeing what others are doing and how we can do it as well.
Nice. Okay, thank you. Asking the question, see who shows up.